Mhm. Well, good evening to Dhaka. Good afternoon to Brussels, and good morning elsewhere. Um, Mrs. Rencia Tiering is not yet on the screen. She might have had some small problem before joining us. We are waiting for her to connect at any minute. Hopefully, she will do it very soon. I will have to start by explaining that Professor Sadeka Halim uh, unfortunately could not make it since tonight her brother passed away, and of course she excused herself, and we would like SADF would like to express our deepest condolences to her and to her family in this occasion. We thought about postponing the event, but it was complicated because there are, the calendar, the festivities and the holidays, festivities in Bangladesh, holidays in Brussels make it difficult. And so we decided to go forward with with the present the present timing. And very fortunately, we found someone who is a very well-known personality in Bangladesh, Ms. Shomi Kaiser, that agreed to join us in the last minute. We are very pleased with her presence, and that she was able to do this with such short notice. It was only a couple of hours before. Um, Shomi Kaiser does need no presentation in Bangladesh. I suppose she's not as well known in Europe. She is presently the president of the e-commerce association. She is an actress. She's a producer. She is someone very well known in the public life in Bangladesh. She was in 2018 candidate to by the Awami League to the present elections, if I'm not wrong. She will correct me if I'm saying something wrong. And she will join us in this conversation. Thank you very much, Mrs. Kaiser, and thank you very much, Mrs. Rumin Farhana. She is a Bangladeshi politician and a former leader of the opposition and member of parliament. She was elected to the last elections. She resigned in December 2022. And she is a barrister and a journalist engaged in law and politics. And thank you very much for accepting this invitation as well. We are expecting Mrs. Steering to come at any time. Let me see if I have any news from her. I don't have it yet. She might have had some problem as well. Yes, I'm trying to join, but only watching live stream. I'm not seeing myself on the screen. Yeah, well, let me see if I can send again, yeah, not on social media. This is not the way to do it. I will try again to send the link, because yes, Rencio, you are not supposed to come in through the social media. You are supposed to come directly, and so you have just to press for the link that we sent you. I'm going to resend it to you right away, just in case you don't have it. Yeah, I just resent it to you. Please press it, um, and um, and you will come into the studio with. If you press it, let me see. Yes, I think that somebody's coming. Let me see. Let me see. No, not yet. I don't see. Well, I hope that she will come at any minute. I think she is aware. She told me she was not. She had not used this system before, but I think it's pretty much like other systems, like the Zoom system. So I hope she will be able to come at any minute. Well, in the meantime, I think that I will not. She will not be the one starting our debate. I was really counting very much on her because, well, even while she is not there, if she can follow us, I can say that Ambassador Rencia Tiering, she is actually deputy director at the Asia Pac department of the European External Action Service. And oh yeah.
Oh, yes,
Here I am. Sorry.
Susan.
Yeah, Rencia.
I
Yeah,
think I only got some the social platform media links, but now it works fantastic. Hello to everyone.
Hello, hello.
Nice to
hello,
meet
hello, hello.
you.
Yes, yes. Well, there might have been some problem with this connection. So good to see you. We already. I mean, if you were in the social media, I think that you saw what we did. We normally are very punctual, because the system starts automatically, and we normally follow the system. We are a bit. We are slaves of the system of the electronic system. And thank you so much, Rencia. I think that you are muted now. Don't mute yourself because,
Okay.
as I was going to say, you are former ambassador of the European Union, both before being in Bangladesh. You were in Kathmandu representing the European Union to SARC, to South Asia Association of Regional Cooperation, and to Nepal itself, I think, if I'm not wrong, if I'm saying something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you went to Bangladesh, and you were, I was following you in the social media all the time, showing your presence everywhere. I was fascinated by your presence. I think that you are perhaps the best observer of the Bangladesh reality within the European institutions. We could have no one better than yourself to introduce the issue. The issue is strengthening Bangladesh democracy, development, and human rights. It's a very general issue on which you have been very much committed. And so my idea is exactly to first give you the floor and to tell us what is your perspective on this issue. What are the priorities? What is the situation? How do you see Bangladesh in South Asia? How the European Union could be a positive partner for the development, democracy, and human rights in Bangladesh. Please,
Thank
Ambassador
you.
Iring Rencia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Paolo, and thanks very much to the other members of the panel. Delighted to meet you, even only on the screen. And thank you for giving me the honor of speaking on Bangladesh-EU relations. I think it's a partnership that has really grown. And just to start maybe with a very upbeat announcement, this year we're actually celebrating 50 years of EU Bangladesh relations. So this is from, I think, for both the EU and Bangladesh a milestone. And I can only look back, as you rightly said, I spent 4 years in Bangladesh. I came back from my posting in 2021, so I'm back only since 2 years. But if I look back in the longer perspective, I used to deal in the European Commission with development assistance. And the very first time I visited Bangladesh was actually in 1999. And so just to give you a little bit the overview of what struck me after coming back after a long time, 20 years to the country, or almost 20 years, is that back in 1999, it was really a relationship that was very much characterized by our development assistance to Bangladesh. We used to work very much with NGOs and civil society. I mean, Bangladeshi colleagues will, of course, know that the very big NGOs such as BRAC, which is still, I mean, of course, one of the biggest civil society organizations in the world, now also working outside of Bangladesh. Also Proshika, the Grameen Bank, GSS, these were the kind of partners we were working with, because it was not always easy to work with the government due to several reasons. Also, I mean, the democratic space at certain time was an issue. When I came back in 2017, starting my posting as ambassador, there was already, the country was marked by really a lot of changes. And I think one can say changes in the very positive sense. I think, first of all, if we look at Bangladesh's economic development, it's, I think, nothing short of a miracle. It's, if there is one country that has benefited from the EU's trade instruments, and especially the Everything But Arms instrument, which actually grants any least developed country quota-free and tariff-free exports into the EU. Bangladesh is the one country that really has managed to grasp the benefits. 60% under EBA of imports into the EU come from Bangladesh, mainly, as you will not be surprised to know, in terms of ready-made garments. So that, I think, has really also enabled Bangladesh to become the kind of economic miracle that it is in South Asia nowadays. We also have, I think, our political relationship with the current government is very strongly grounded. We have also elevated this partnership while starting political consultations, which we didn't have before. And we're looking also to upgrade our partnership. Now we have this kind of this partnership agreement that is an old document from the 1990s, and we want to go for a partnership and cooperation agreement. So we're doing that, and I think that is also a sign that we're working with Bangladesh much more on these political issues as well. There is, of course, also Bangladesh's growing place as a strategic partner in the Indo-Pacific, the Bay of Bengal. I think that is, of course, Bangladesh is an increasingly important role to play as a country in very well placed in the Bay of Bengal and the Indo-Pacific. And then, of course, also in the multilateral framework, Bangladesh has on several occasions also voted with us in the UN, for example, on the Ukraine, on resolutions against Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Not always, but there are a number of instances Bangladesh did vote for us. And then let's not forget Bangladesh's important role in peacekeeping in the UN. So it's also posed to be a country that is graduating from LDC status in 2026. So that is coming quickly. We, of course, will invite Bangladesh to apply for GSP Plus trade facilitation, on which Bangladesh will need to ratify a number of ILO and conventions, and I think most of them are already done, so that is good. And I think lastly, because the topic of this call is democracy also and human rights, is we have, of course, a human rights dialogue with Bangladesh on good governance as well. And I think there we very openly discuss issues of mutual interest. So I think there's a lot in this partnership that is interesting. Of course, it's still also there that we are still development partners as well. We have the Team Europe approach now, Global Gateway, and we think that Bangladesh can play an important role there as well, especially working together on climate change, greening of the economy. So we're doing that. We're working still on social protection, very important also, for example, if we look at laborers in the garment industry. So there's all this that we're doing. And last but not least, I think in the humanitarian field, we have to acknowledge Bangladesh's very important role of hosting a very sizable Rohingya refugee population. This has been the case already for decades, but of course became very serious in 2017 with the ethnic cleansing, the operations in that Myanmar perpetrated against the Rohingya population. And more than 1 million now are living in camps in Cox's Bazar and also in Basanchar. So that is something where we, and not only we, but the international community is supporting Bangladesh. Maybe not enough. We are aware that there are funding concerns. With everything that's going on in the world, it's these crises tend to become forgotten crises, and it's, I think, also our job to make sure that they're not forgotten and that this the attention of the world keeps focused on the Rohingya issue. So it's to just sum up, I don't want to speak too long, but I think our partnership has grown. It's a relationship from a more traditional development partner, aid beneficiary kind of relationship to a much more mature geopolitical, geostrategic relationship that will grow also once we will have signed the partnership and cooperation agreement. Hopefully we can start negotiations in the coming months for that. So I think it's interesting. We continue to be engaged in Bangladesh, and so I think it's a very timely opportunity to have this talk, especially also in the framework of our 50 years jubilee. So with that, over to you, Paulo. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was a very comprehensive presentation and miracle. Yes, this is a bit the impression one gets. I have not been that long ago in Bangladesh. The first time, I think the first time was in 2011. And, but I mean, going through several times to the country, it's absolutely amazing what one can see in this country that was supposed to be this basket case, so famous. So yes, I think that you made a wonderful introduction to this wonderful country that from many perspectives is now heading the whole of the subcontinent. And perhaps I would now give the floor to the former member of the parliament, a member of the BNP, Ms. Rumin Farhana. If you want to give us your impression coming from a party within the opposition of all these issues, and speak your mind, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and good evening to everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank SADF for making me a part of this wonderful discussion. Of course, I believe that I don't expect that all the problems will be solved by today's dialogue, but of course, it's a very good kickoff, I must say that. And we, the politicians, civil society members, as well as the common people, talk about election every now and then. What is our main concern? Our main concern is very basic. Whether we, the people of Bangladesh, will ever be able to cast our vote and choose our representatives freely, and if so, when and how, especially when the ruling regime clearly crushed down the total electoral system. All the typical symptoms of a country lacking free and fair election are now vividly visible in Bangladesh. Let me give you a short overview of that. According to Economist Intelligence Unit, Bangladesh is a hybrid regime. In VDEM's ranking, Bangladesh has been ranked 147th among 179 countries in Liberal Democracy Index, LDI. Freedom House categorizes Bangladesh as partly free. Bertelsmann Foundation's Transformation Index 2018, BTI, rated Bangladesh as an autocracy. The Civicus Monitor classifies Bangladesh as repressed. Bangladesh was not invited to Democracy Summit organized by Biden administration, as you all know. In Press Freedom Index of Reporters Without Borders, this year Bangladesh was ranked 163rd out of 180 countries. This year Bangladesh scored 25 out of 100 in Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index 2022, ranking 147th out of 180 countries. As a significant consequence of a non-elected government, rampant corruption has been prevalent in this country. Consequently, this country is facing the most severe economic crisis since its independence. A forex reserve, if all the immediate liabilities are deducted, will merely be enough for meeting the import bill of approximately 2 months. This is far less than the safe margin. The government went for budget support from IMF, World Bank, ADB, as you all know. In South Asia, except Bangladesh, only 2 other countries went for support from IMF. One is Sri Lanka and the other is Pakistan. Bangladesh is facing the highest inflation in its history. It is at least 20%, though the government falsely said it's 10. If we consider it as 10, even if it is the highest in a decade. Cause of this dire economic condition is rampant corruption, as I have already told, and laundering of that money to many developed countries. According to the Global Financial Integrity GFI, every year between $8 to $10 billion is laundered from Bangladesh through banking channel. If the amount of laundering by non-banking channels is added, total amount will be at least the double of the amount. That is scary. Due to severe corruption, Bangladeshi physical infrastructures are the most expensive in the world. In June 17, 2017, in a news conference, Bangladesh Office of World Bank proved with adequate data that the expense of constructing roads in this country tops the world. They too blamed corruption for that. A massive corruption took place in banking sector, from where government oligarchs took vast amount of loans and became defaulter intentionally. After coming to power, the ruling regime permitted its oligarchs to establish power plants that were very much against the interest of the country. A special act was enacted to bypass the public procurement procedure. Indemnity was given so that no one can ask about it in future. Despite paying huge economic price, Bangladesh is still suffering from power crisis. In this perspective, we are here to discuss about our current state of democracy, economic condition, and human rights situation. Dear discussants, let me start with democracy first. In the last few years, we experienced such an election where people couldn't vote. In 2014, representatives of 150 seats were selected uncontested. I purposefully use the word selected as no election took place in those seats. The ruling party selected the candidates and they became MPs automatically. Not a single vote was needed for that. The so-called election contradicts Article 7(1), 11, 65(2), and above all, the very spirit of our constitution. In that election, the so-called main opposition party, Jatiya Party, was forced to play the role of the opposition. 3 ministers and a special envoy to the Prime Minister were appointed from Jatiya Party, which is unprecedented in the democratic world. After that Some local government elections took place, which were also marred by rigging and severe violence. Then another national election took place in 2018, which was, though participatory, was not free and fair. This election is popularly known as midnight election, since ballot papers were stuffed in the previous night. In a survey done immediately after the election by Transparency International Bangladesh (TIB), it found that in 94% of the constituencies, some sort of rigging took place. Most important finding of that survey, that is, proof of ballot stuffing in the previous night, was found in 66% of the constituencies. TIB stated that if asked, they are ready to produce all the documents on which the survey was done, but the ruling party didn't challenge this record. Now another election is knocking at the door, and here the discussion begins. As the main opposition party, our prime concern is whether that election will be such where the people can exercise their voting rights, or it will be marred by rigging and violence as before. Secondly, history says only 4 elections in past 51 years were more or less accepted by all the parties. Those are the general elections held in 91, 96, 2001, and 2008. All those elections were taken place under a non-party caretaker government. Thirdly, the concept of caretaker is the brainchild of Awami League. They boycotted parliament, called hartal or strike for 176 days, organized violent movements on streets, and compelled BNP to amend the constitution and incorporate caretaker government in the constitution in 1996. After assuming power in 2009, they realized that keeping the provision of caretaker in the constitution, they won't be able to continue their ruling. In a verdict regarding caretaker, the Supreme Court left option to have 2 more general elections under caretaker. The government formed a committee to collect opinions from all stakeholders, led by 2 senior Awami League leaders. In that committee, Awami League opined in favor of caretaker government. But suddenly the decision was changed and caretaker was removed from the constitution. Hence, the elections of 2014 and 18 took place under Awami League government. For the next election, the government is adamant, saying that the caretaker is a dead and buried issue. Election will take place, keeping them in power, but after 2018, it's in no way possible for the opposition parties to participate in such farcical election. Bangladesh is facing an acute crisis. There is no democracy, no freedom of speech, no freedom of expression, no freedom of association, and so on. There is a fear psychosis everywhere. Black laws like Digital Security Act, Anti-Terrorism Act, Special Powers Act are being used to shut the opposition up. In a false and politically motivated case, our chairperson was in jail. She is now in house arrest, and the government compelled her to stay away from politics. Our acting chairman is in exile. Our party secretary general got more than 100 cases against him. He was in jail for many, many times. In fact, anyone having different view from that of the government is a target now. Random cases are filed against our members and activists. We call those cases ghost cases. Nothing happened, no evidence, no witness, but case has been filed. You'll be surprised to know that our 4 million people were accused in almost 200,000 cases. Our people are being killed, picked up by the police, face enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killing, torture in police custody, and whatnot. In last 14 and a half years, 2,600 extrajudicial killings and more than 600 enforced disappearances has been committed by the law enforcing agencies. So you can clearly see the human rights situation of Bangladesh now. In last few months, when BNP started peaceful movements, police gunned down 17 BNP activists. Father of a BNP activist was brutally beaten to death. Hundreds of cases have been filed against BNP supporters and activists. Before every single rally, mass transport service was stopped. Police searched the BNP activist house to arrest them, but nothing could stop people from joining in our rally. They reached the meeting place on foot, rickshaw van, and many other ways possible. These meetings become the meetings of general people, common people, not only BNP activists and members. This certainly gives a clear message to the government that general people started relying on BNP and consider it the only way out from this authoritarian regime. A country which observed its golden jubilee of independence 2 years back is facing a real threat of being a failed state. I'm sorry for using the word failed state, but that is the reality. Extraordinary situation deserves extraordinary measure, extraordinary care. An acceptable and participatory election under a non-partisan caretaker government is a bare necessity in this situation. Such an election will not solve all the problems, as I understand, which have been created during 1.5 decades of bad governance of the ruling regime, but it will certainly start improving the situation and pave the way to a truly democratic Bangladesh, which will ensure all the rights to its citizens. An elected government is more likely to be accountable than an unelected one. So, to ensure democracy, good governance, freedom of speech and expression, rule of law, human rights, we need to have a free, fair, and participatory election in 2014. Bangladesh cannot afford another 2014 or 2018 election. As another election is approaching, the USA, along with some Western countries, raising their voice for a free, fair, and acceptable election in Bangladesh. As a part of this, the USA on December 10, 2021, imposed sanction on the elite force RAB and its 7 officers. This had a very significant effect on stopping extrajudicial killing, enforced disappearance, and custodial torture by this force. Moreover, in recent times, the USA declared its new visa policy aimed at ensuring a free, fair, and participatory election in Bangladesh. Except the ruling nexus formed by political leaders, business people, and civil military bureaucracy, all the people of this country welcome these steps. People of this country believe these steps will catalyze an acceptable and participatory election in our country. On top of that, 6 Republican congressmen wrote a letter to the US President Joe Biden where they strongly condemned the absence of free poll and human rights violation by the government. In the letter, they urged their president to take appropriate measures to give Bangladesh the best chance for free elections, including stricter individual sanctions, banning Bangladesh law enforcement and military personnel from participating in UN peacekeeping missions, etc. Another letter was written by 6 Congress members who urged for initiatives and a feedback method for the steps taken by the US government. Last but not the least, prior to the Bangladesh tour of the UN under Secretary General of Peacekeeping Human Rights Watch and International Human Rights Organization, reiterated the UN to check human rights record of Bangladeshi peacekeepers who worked in RAB and other forces. I want to take an opportunity to thank you parliamentarians who issued letter on this month asking the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Joseph Borrell, to take necessary measures while engaging in constant dialogue with Bangladesh authorities on human rights agenda. 6 EU parliamentarians emphasized the importance of the upcoming 12th parliamentary election in Bangladesh, where the MEPs called on the Vice President for initiatives to ensure a free and fair election under a neutral caretaker government, the release of Bangladesh Nationalist Party chairperson Begum Zia, government's engagement with other major political parties, including BNP, to find a sustainable and democratic solution to the ongoing political crisis. The expectations of these MEPs resonates with the demand of the Bangladeshi citizens. A relevant information may be added here. The European Union ambassador to Bangladesh, Charles Whiteley, said that free and fair elections would be a positive signal for Bangladesh for its readiness to get GSP Plus facility to exports of Bangladeshi products to EU market. I believe US step in Bangladesh has shown what should be done for preventing democratic backsliding of Bangladesh, but it is not adequate. I hope, following the appeal of the 6 MEPs, you should consider steps for holding next general election under caretaker government. I believe this will have a huge impact on reserving the democratic backsliding of Bangladesh. Who knows how important working democratic system is for sustainable and equitable development more than the EU and its members. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Farhana, for your contribution, for your views. I think that you spoke very freely and very much from your mind. That's what I would like to say in the beginning. But before giving the floor to Ms. Shoni Kaiser, she was just engaged a couple of hours ago on this. She is not a professional of politics, so she might not be in the right position to address all the issues that you raised, but I think that she has a vision. She has a vision for the country, and I would like to hear it from her. Thank you very much for being with us this evening in Dhaka. Please, Mrs. Kaiser, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Paulo. I'm not a politician, but my family has been into politics. I just thought while hearing Rumin Farhana, I was wanting to phrase a little bit about myself, because my father was into politics and he was one of the key permanent person in forming Bangladesh. In 1971, he was an intellectual who was abducted just right 2 days before our independence. And my mother was a politician, and she was member of the parliament with Awami League in 96. And I have been all through involved, not directly, indirectly with politics as a cultural activist. Thank you so much for inviting me. So I was hearing Renzi, how beautifully she was talking about Bangladesh, and I was listening to Rumin Farhana. And just to add also that Rumin Farhana's father was also involved in a language movement. So I will come to Rumin Farhana later, the points that she raised. I just wanted to say from my perspective, I think this is very important, that where Bangladesh is now today compared to 80s and 90s. And Renzi, I've met you many times when you were in Bangladesh, especially on digital commerce and women empowerment, and how women empowerment took place with the help of digital commerce, not economically only, politically, socially, culturally. Today, compared to 80s and 90s, Bangladesh has a strong track record of growth and development, even in the times of elevated global uncertainty. A robust demographic dividend, strong ready-made garment exports, resilience of the people, remittance inflows, and stable macroeconomic conditions have supported rapid economic growth over the past 2 decades. And as Renzi was mentioning about the relationship, yes, I congratulate EU and Bangladesh on the 50-year celebration of the diplomatic relationship. I just wanted to reflect how these two nations connected. These two nations are connected emotionally and also with the aspirational point of view, because EU always believed in the human rights, people's input. Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has always believed in the people's input and the human rights. I will talk about a bit on human rights a little later. And I also gathered, and I want to recall that the historic resolution which was taking place between EU and Bangladesh 2013 and 2014, where EU clearly mentioned that BNP needs to disassociate with with Jamaat Islami. So who is Jamaat Islami? Jamaat Islami is the party which was against the independent Bangladesh. So this is where we need to focus our point on. And another was that the development which has been taken place in last 2 decades has been applauded by EU, and self-sufficient, especially in the agriculture, on migrant, on the export issues. And Renzi very clearly mentioned the GSP under EBA, everything but arms. It has helped Bangladesh to increase the export and in EU, and helped Bangladesh's economy to come from aid economy to self-sufficient economy, export-based economy. So this is where Bangladesh is actually going towards. And we know that when we talk about this economic process and the development, we have seen the economic development in last 2 decades. How the digital intervention, the digital backbone, the fiber optics has been laid up to Upazila level, and it has helped people to sustain during COVID. How it was possible? Because it was a political decision by Honorable Prime Minister. I would also like to reflect a bit when Rumin Farhana was talking about the electoral process. I am not a politician. Again, I'm saying I am going to talk about my standpoint, which is a cultural activist. Caretaker government, Rumin Farhana has mentioned, and we have seen how Bangladesh's politics has been trapped by the caretaker government. This is why Sheikh Hasina's aim, and just recently last year, the Election Commission Act has been developed, where it has been cleared which party has what role. It has been absolutely clear. So we need to also when we are talking about institutional reform, these are very important aspects that we have to look into. And also when we are talking about the human rights violation, if I can just recall, then in 1971, that 2 million, so many people were killed, and in 75, our father of the nation was killed. This Sheikh Hasina, by establishing the criminal justice, the rights for the human rights, and giving the really giving the trial for the criminals, Sheikh Hasina has brought Bangladesh from the culture of impunity, which was many years prevailing in Bangladesh, till she came in the power. And I still remember the 21st August in 2004, the terrorism was institutionalized. Why we are forgetting that? And when we are young cultural activists, our voice was stopped. When Rumin Farhana was talking about freedom of speech was not there when we were young actors and we are cultural activists. We were blacklisted from the media. Our work was stopped. Our content was taken away. When we are talking about the freedom of speech now, we do have a very strong freedom of speech. If we see the number of newspapers, if we see the number of electronic media, if we see the social media, how people are still criticizing, no one is stopping that. If we just recall a few months back, when Modi went to US, 75 senators and the parliamentarian gave the ruling against Modi going to US, and Modi stopped Elon Musk to do business in Bangladesh on TikTok. But again, this Elon Musk is doing business in India. If we see a couple of years back in UK, the law was passed where the general people cannot do any processions on the road because people's livelihood will be disturbed. And if they do that, there will be a 7 years imprisonment. We in our parliament, we do not do it. Yes, we might have challenges. That is where Sheikh Hasina is aiming for, going through a proper democratic processes. And how she's doing it in the proper institutional reform. Today, the religious fundamental groups like Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islami, Hefazat-e-Islam Bangladesh, and like they're being tied up with BNP and accommodating. They have been doing a lot of chaotic situations in Bangladesh, and they have been actually doing a lot of atrocity, killing people. And And alongside, when we talk about the democracy, democracy is a long way to go. We have come a long way under the leadership of Sheikh Hasina, and we will be going long way. Along with the constitutional framework, there are institutional mechanisms such as National Human Rights Commission of Bangladesh, Bangladesh Law Commission, Anti-Corruption Commission, Information Commission. These institutions are being reformed, and they are continuously being reformed by our government. And now I'm just pointing out few points that Rumin Farhana mentioned. She did a written speech. I don't have any written speech because I didn't have any time to work on a lot of numbers. I just want to recall a few incidents took place. Me and my family have been victim during BNP regimes. There was not at all freedom of speech of the artists, of the people. And my uncle Shahriar Kabir was in the prison. The writers were in the prison. And that was the time we have seen how the people had the fearfulness about talking about the rights and the democracy. And also today, when Rumin was mentioning about the banking sectors, yes, banking sectors needs reforms. These reforms are going under the leadership of Sheikh Hasina. If I just give you a few numbers, the private sector has seen its serious growth in last 2 decades. The private sector have a conducive policy framework supporting, government has the conducive framework supporting the private sector, be it in the women empowerment, be it in the garment sector, being in the local domestic market. We have a largest domestic market at the moment, and that is where government is reforming. And we have a National Skill Development Authority under the leadership of our government, where all the sectoral skill development are being focused. So if we talk about the achievements are unlimited. Yes, there have been a lot of challenges. The challenges are being mitigated, and the challenges are mitigating by the government in different way. And Renzi, I just also wanted to mention, when Rumin was talking, I don't want to forget of mentioning that the labor law has been enacted, and there has been a strong, very successful meeting of the labor law, our labor condition, under the leadership of our State Minister Shahriar Alam in this March with European Union. This was very engaging discussion that we gathered. We gathered it from the media, and the challenges were also discussed. And where there were, that is when all the success of the Prime Minister was applauded by EU. And the successes are not a rhetorics anymore. It has been seen. Then we have seen how digital intervention has changed our life. How it helped to sustain during COVID, how the women empowerment has taken place, how the women rights law has been enacted, where a lot of women are actually, there are challenges, as I'm saying, a lot of women are seeking support under that women rights law. And if we talk about the maternal mortality rate has decreased by more than 2/3 in last 2 decades, and it is again falling. The fertility rate is declining. How this was possible? This was only possible with the political will, with the political goodwill, with the political and government's conducive policies. And that has helped Bangladesh to emerge, and helping Bangladesh to emerge. I know that European Union has been a good supporting partner for Bangladesh, and European Union's that particular decision on the export GSP facilities has helped Bangladesh to come from aid-based economy to export-oriented economy. Human rights one data also I would like to share, and I again gathered it, and I know because I work. When we talk about the missing people, there has been always government is asking for the list to Odhikar to give the right lists. There was only 76 lists of the people, missing people were given, where 11 people have been retrieved. And among these 76 people who were missing, the list was given by Geneva. Then 11 people were retrieving, and some of them were missing during the BNP's regime. I also would like to tell Rumin Farhana that I just want to recap on that. I just want to tell you that a lot of people were missing in the BNP's regime, the list which was given. And also 15 to 16 families are not cooperating. And also every time the foreign ministry and the foreign policy makers are asking for the list to Odhikar even, they are not properly giving the right numbers and the lists. So I am saying that there are a lot of gap and perspective of understanding. When I address Rumin Farhana, I come from a Mathia family. My family, I lost my father. My mother sacrificed her entire life for Bangladesh. And we suffered. We have seen how we have suffered. Our voice were choked. We could not talk. We could not speak. We could not even have a simple expression, freedom of expression in social media. Now we have seen how social media is coming big. And again, when we talk about the human rights violation, we are seeing our people are being victimized by the use of social media, how by the opponent political parties. So that is where we need to really work together. Instead of talking against the country, it will not give us anything. I think where we have come as a freedom fighters family, Rumin also knows that where we have come from, where today in Bangladesh, it is something to feel proud about. And when Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is in power, people of Bangladesh are safe. People in Bangladesh are more confident. Women are secured. Young people are talking about innovation. They are wanting to become not only the local citizen, they are looking forward to become a global citizen with the help of information and technologies intervention. The grassroots people are safe. The agriculturists, the farmers are safe. We have seen the immense growth. If I keep on telling the number of the growth, that will be endless. I don't want to share that. And also, I think we need to come out of the culture of blaming each other. We have to come out of the culture of blaming. We need to be respectful. We have to tell the truth. With the truth can also only make us grow together, not by lies, by the vengeance. It will not help us to grow. And the core philosophy of the father of the nation is the peaceful coexistence and the peaceful democratic process, the right democratic process, and the peaceful and the bilateral good relationship with the different countries, where EU plays a significant role. And I believe that EU will never take a hasty decision. There are, as I have said, there has been a strong aspirational and emotional relationship. And I would like to thank EU today, especially as an activist and as a small entrepreneur, how EU's historical resolution has helped us to come from aid-based economy to export-based economy and giving us this GSP support and EU. And a lot of our private sector is enjoying that. And it is a long way to go, again, I say. And with that, I want to thank, and again, I'm very sorry I don't have my written speech ready. I have spoken from my emotion and what I am experiencing every day, what I have experienced during 80s and 90s, and what I am experiencing today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kaiser. This was a very, very good intervention, especially taking in consideration that you really were just caught some hours ago. before starting the debate, I had a request from Ambassador Mahmoud Saleh to make a comment. He is actually in mission in Luxembourg, exactly on the context of the 50th anniversary of the EU-Bangladesh relations. But I have the deputy head of the mission, of the Bangladesh mission to the European Union, Ms. Preeti Rahman. I think she is able to join us. We are really on. I am the only one that is not a woman in this debate. That's very, very interesting. So, please, Ms. Preeti Rahman, do make a comment, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kasaka, and good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to all our other distinguished speakers. As you've rightly said, it would have been my ambassador, Ambassador Mahmoud Hassan Saleh, who was supposed to speak at this point, but he is occupied in a pre-scheduled official program, and we miss the pleasure and privilege to hear from him. On behalf of the Embassy of Bangladesh in Brussels, let me thank you, Paolo, for creating space for this conversation on some extremely pertinent topics for Bangladesh. It has indeed been highly interesting, enlightening to hear our three distinguished speakers this afternoon. There has been a lot of praise, some criticism. I would fully agree with Ms. Shomi Kaiser when she says that we have to cooperate, we have to work together. Criticism has to be constructive, it has to be based on truth, based on facts, and that is how we can actually move forward. So on that note, I am pleased to make a few comments and add to the perspectives from this end. The topic chosen for today, strengthening democracy, development, and human rights, I think it says it all. Democracy, development, human rights, these are all issues and concepts which go through a continuous process of evolution, building, rebuilding, and of course, strengthening. These are all complementary and mutually reinforcing. In Bangladesh, the government, under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, has been aiming at ensuring peace and economic stability of the country within a democratic system. If you look at some of the numbers in the last decade or so, poverty levels have come down to 20% from 40%. Per capita income has increased from about 550 US dollars to a little over 2,800 US dollars. Literacy rates have lifted from 45% to more than 75%. During the COVID pandemic, Bangladesh achieved a GDP growth of 3.45% when many countries across the world were experiencing negative growth. PricewaterhouseCoopers has lauded Bangladesh's efforts to cope with the pandemic and termed Bangladesh as the next investment destination. The export income from goods and services in a full year 2007-2008 was about US dollar 14 billion. It has increased fourfold in 2021-22 to 60 billion US dollars. Coming to Bangladesh's stellar performance in women empowerment, this is once again reflected in this year's Global Gender Gap Report by the World Economic Forum, which was released just a couple of days ago. With the highest gender parity in South Asia, Bangladesh ranks 59th globally out of 146 countries. Last year, Bangladesh was at the 71st rank, while also enjoying the distinction of having the lowest gender gap in South Asia. So we see that strengthening is happening. The economy of Bangladesh, there has been quite a bit of data that we have heard so far, and let me just add very briefly to that. The economy of Bangladesh today is the 35th largest in the world, and it is set to be the 24th largest by 2030. Under the dynamic and visionary leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, the very able daughter of our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Bangladesh is on the threshold of graduating from the category of least developed countries by 2026 and striving to be a higher middle income country. We remain grateful and appreciative of the contribution of our development partners, including the European Union, towards this impressive development of Bangladesh. This year, we are celebrating 50 years of EU-Bangladesh partnership, as Ambassador Thiering has rightly mentioned at the beginning. Our common goals of improving the quality of life of our peoples, continued empowerment of women, addressing the challenges of climate change, repatriation of more than 1.2 million forcibly displaced Myanmar nationals, Rohingyas, to their homeland in Myanmar, expansion of education and healthcare. Just very recently, our collaboration in countering COVID-19, improvement in workplace safety and labor rights, diversification of the export basket, safe, orderly, and regular migration, continuous improvement in our governance, cooperation on the Indo-Pacific. Ambassador Thiering has detailed many of these, achieving the SDGs. All of these bring us even closer as partners. And Bangladesh is indeed a success story of the EU's Everything But Arms initiative. Very recently, I'm pleased to share with you that Bangladesh has been chosen by the European Union to partner in the Talent Partnership Scheme, whereby skilled youth from Bangladesh can avail of job opportunities in member states of the European Union. For that, we are already working with several stakeholders in Bangladesh, including the National Skills Development Authority, which Ms. Shumi Kaiser touched upon a short while ago. Overall, the agreement between both EU and Bangladesh to launch the Partnership Cooperation Agreement, it shows how the relationship between Bangladesh and the European Union is being increasingly viewed through a strategic lens. Now, as part of the vision to earn Bangladesh a developed country status by 2041, the government has delivered on a number of mega infrastructure projects, and more are ongoing, as all of you know. Exactly in this month, in June last year, the people of Bangladesh saw the most challenging construction project in the history of Bangladesh coming to life, the Podda Bridge, over a section of the mighty Ganges River in Bangladesh. This is the deepest bridge in the world, with piles installed as deep as 127 meters into the seabed, into the riverbed. This bridge was inaugurated by Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in June last year. It is estimated that more than 23,000 vehicles use the bridge every day to transport people, goods, and services, connecting the southwest part of the country with the northern and eastern regions. The bridge cuts hours-long travel time to less than 10 minutes. The foundation stone for this bridge was laid in 2001 by Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. The dwellers of capital city Dhaka are availing the benefits of the first metro rail being operationalized in Bangladesh. Again, Bangabandhu satellite has been launched, which is the first Bangladeshi geostationary communications and broadcasting satellite. The first nuclear power plant in the country is at its final stages of completion. Paira Seaport, Matarbari Seaport, these are projects which will add a new dimension to the economic growth of the country. Looking more long term, we have Delta Plan 2100, which has been formulated to build a resilient delta. This is a region known for the resilience of its people. Coming to some of the other issues that were touched upon, the government has maintained a zero tolerance policy towards terrorism, militancy, and violent extremism. The economic development stability that we have just talked about have contributed to the qualitative changes in the decision-making power of the people. The government is pledge-bound to pursue the development goals, which are very much in line with the UN SDGs, empowering vulnerable people, especially women and backward sections of the society. And the idea is to build on democratic values within the society and at the state level. The 12th parliamentary elections are due in the country soon, and there is a lot of interest internationally in this as well. The Election Commission, as the constitutional entity principally responsible for holding free and fair elections, plays the central role in election matters in the country. According to Article 2 of the Representation of the People Order 1972, all executive authorities of the government shall assist the Commission in the performance of its functions. Therefore, the sitting government does not have any legislative power to take policy decisions, but to assist the Election Commission to hold the free and fair elections, towards which the government has already declared its full commitment within the current mandate of the Constitution. And of course, regarding participation in the elections, it is very much the responsibility of all political parties to come forward and participate in free and fair elections. Just to share a recent example, over May and June this year, we witnessed the Election Commission conducting elections in 5 city corporations across the country. These included the largest city corporation, Ghazipur, which has more than 1 million voters and almost 3,500 polling booths. And I mentioned the figures to give you an idea of the kind of numbers we are looking at. We've all seen the media reports on these city corporation elections. The voters could exercise their franchise in a smooth and fair manner with more than 50% turnout of voters in almost all the cities. The Election Commission has given a clear feedback that there has been no reports of violence or untoward incidents, and people have been able to vote peacefully, barring one alleged isolated incident in one of the polling centers in one of the southern cities, which is under investigation. Law enforcement agencies were on high alert during these elections. Voting was carried out through electronic voting machines. Hundreds of closed-circuit cameras were installed to ensure the security of the polling booths. This just sharing the numbers of these latest city corporation elections which took place. For the general elections, the government has already announced that it welcomes both local and international election observers from UN organizations, intergovernmental bodies, and of course rights agencies. As part of this approach, the Election Commission has already extended an invitation to the European Union for an observer team to observe the electoral processes. And we understand that preparations are on to deploy an exploratory election observation mission soon to Bangladesh by the EU. On another topic which was mentioned, the Digital Security Act, if I may add a few perspectives. The issue of DSA is definitely something which is of a high national international interest. The need for enacting the DSA was felt in the context of rapid digital transformation in Bangladesh that saw significant changes in the standard of lives of mass people. Just to share, it is estimated that Bangladesh ranks first in the world in terms of internet penetration rates, with almost 67 million internet users as of January this year. While the digital revolution in Bangladesh was intended for ensuring rights of the people to enjoy high standards and quality of life, greater exposure, better well-being, this unfortunately also made space for anti-state elements to conspire and tarnish the image of Bangladesh, malign the father of the nation, and also make attempts to create public disorder. And therefore, in order to protect the spirit of our liberation war, which goes to the root of our existence as a nation, the values of liberty, freedom, progress, which we fought for, and as well as to protect the rights of people in cyberspace, the DSA was enacted, essentially to plug the gap of legal protection for crimes in cyberspace. Now, the cases which have been filed under the Digital Security Act are subject to investigation and prosecution following the due process of law. The individuals charged under the law are entitled to all forms of redress prescribed by the law. However, the government remains sensitized to the fact that due to broad scope of the law, there may be room for its misinterpretation and misapplication by actors on the ground. And the government is open to learning about global best practices in this regard. And to that end, the government is willing to engage and is engaging on this issue with relevant human rights mechanisms and other interested development partners. And if I may mention, for instance, the government has welcomed Dr. Henry Glazer, an EU security expert, more than once to Bangladesh since February 2022, and engaged with him to discuss on the DSA. Again, in response to concerns of UN agencies, NGOs, civil society, the government has formed a high-powered committee headed by the Legislative Secretary with high officials from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Law and Justice Division, and Information Communication Technology Division to review the application of the DSA and to make necessary recommendations as may be needed to the government. The Honorable Law Minister is engaged in dialogue with the UN High Commissioner Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. He has held meetings with civil society organizations as well, as many of you know. Another important step in this direction is the Honorable Law Minister, along with the Home Minister, has agreed that any complaint under DSA would be sent to a cell for determining whether there is a prima facie case. Only then a case will be registered and no arrest will take place at the stage of lodging and registering the case. And this has been put into effect, which has resulted in a significant containment of misuse of this act. So to sum up the points here, I would say indeed there are challenges vis-a-vis application of the DSA. What is needed is capacity building, awareness raising to effectively help reduce the incidence of misapplication of the law. And most importantly, the government of Bangladesh remains engaged to continue the ongoing discussions on reviewing the act. Do I have a bit more time, Paolo?
Well, we are running a bit out of time, but if you just want to make some concluding remarks.
Just a couple of other issues. Let me take a moment to speak on an issue which has been just briefly mentioned. I think Renchi mentioned it. The best example of Bangladesh giving utmost importance to protecting human rights is sheltering 1.2 million Rohingyas. When Myanmar perpetrated extreme torture and persecution with genocidal intent on their citizens, the Rohingyas, we in Bangladesh opened our borders in 2017 to ensure the protection of the very basic right of these persecuted millions, the right to life. We are almost completing 6 years of providing temporary shelter to them, with the population in the camps estimated to be increasing by 30,000 every year. Not a single Rohingya has been able to go back to their homeland in Myanmar simply because the conditions in Myanmar are not conducive for their return. Whenever there is talk of the return to Bangladesh, the government of Bangladesh has always remained firmly committed to a policy of safe, voluntary, and dignified return. I recall the famous quote made by Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina when she said that if we have the ability to feed 160 million people, we can feed another million. This indeed reflects the deep level of humanitarianism and generosity being shown by the country. Today, Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh is home to the largest complex of camps in the world, hosting the forcibly displaced Rohingyas from Myanmar. Bangladesh remains appreciative of the support by the international community, including the humanitarian assistance provided by the EU and political support in the multilateral fora. With the global economic downturn, we have recently seen a reduction in funding. It is also important to understand that the Rohingya crisis is the result of a long smoldering conflict, which may be a catalyst for new sources of conflict. The crisis is taking a protracted form, which may lead to the emergence of newer challenges, including extortion, human trafficking, drug trafficking, radicalization, as well as intergroup conflicts, some of which we have already seen. We remember the killing of Rohingya leader Mohibullah in late 2021. To add on to that, the financial shortages foreseen will have a devastating impact on children and women. So as international assistance is foreseen to dwindle, the government of Bangladesh faces increased challenges in managing this community. I take this opportunity to reiterate what the government of Bangladesh has been stressing, that the UN, the EU, and other partners must undertake tangible and effective actions and projects in Myanmar to create an environment conducive to their safe and sustainable repatriation. Having spoken about the Rohingya crisis, let me also say that despite this is one of the big challenges that the country faces. The other one is, of course, the threat of climate change. Coupled with that, we are a country of almost 170 million people. And amidst all these odds, the government is continuously making enormous efforts for people-centric development with the ultimate aim of progressively realizing the rights of all its people. The obligation of the government of Bangladesh for the protection and promotion of human rights emanates from the country's constitution and the legislative, judicial, and administrative mechanisms and the provisions therein. And in the same way, Bangladesh's respect for international human rights mechanism is well manifested from Bangladesh's ratification of almost all international human rights conventions. Let me say that it is with a sense of pride as well as humility that Bangladesh has received victory as a member of the UN Human Rights Council for the term 2023 to 25 by securing the highest number of votes. At the same time, it is also a reminder of the greater responsibilities that we have to embrace as we deepen and widen our footprints in the Committee of Nations. The government is intensely engaged and has cooperated with the OHCHR and human rights mechanisms, including special procedure mechanisms. There has been a tendency for quite some time to label certain cases of missing people as enforced disappearance. Although the legal system of Bangladesh does not have any terminology like enforced disappearance, rather the criminal law has provisions in respect of kidnapping or abduction that applies equally to every individual. Upon investigation of the alleged enforced disappearance cases, the findings reveal that people at times have disappeared voluntarily to avoid legal action for the cases lodged against them, or they choose to disappear on issues of family feud or avoid business liabilities. Having said that, the government maintains zero tolerance policy to any form of extrajudicial activities by the law enforcing authorities. We do not claim that there is no disproportionate use of force. It is there in many countries, developed and developing. What is important is that every incident of disproportionate use of force or exchange of fire by law enforcement authorities, even if it occurs in the course of duty, should be investigated by competent authorities, and they are. The accused members of law enforcement authorities face appropriate legal actions before the court of law. The Public Service Act 2018 provides a number of provisions to ensure accountability and transparency for law enforcement agencies in Bangladesh. If any member of any law enforcement agency is proved to be responsible for any misdeed or transgression or offense, he or she must face exemplary punishment as per prevailing rules and laws. On that note, let us say that this will remain an integral part of our efforts to ensure and strengthen the rights of all people in Bangladesh, this vibrant young nation in South Asia. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Priti Raman. I think that we are really going quite over our time. With Mrs. Kaiser pointed to me that she has a compromise afterwards. I know that the discussion is far from finished. I mean, it's just started. I think it was a very open discussion. We freely spoke. We had a lot of points of view. I have my points of view, of course, but they are not really important here in this context. What I would like to say is that to the whole of the participants, I mean, you ladies, you are fantastic. You are really fantastic, the whole of you.
Thank you.
You're really showing that you are going to naturally. You don't need any device. I mean, you will certainly emerge as the dominant force, and that's a good thing in this world. SADF is ready to be part of solution, to facilitate dialogue, understanding within the principles that are very well known and the positions that are very well known. And therefore, I would like to say to certainly to the European institutions, to the Bangladesh authorities, to the competing parties in Bangladesh, that we will be available for the continuation of these efforts. I really wish that there will be positive outcomes. I have a very positive view of Bangladesh and the way it has been going forward. There are new challenges, things that have to be improved for sure. And if we can be of any help, that would be fantastic from our side. I don't think we don't have the time now to continue this discussion. You did speak very well, all of you. I think it was, food for thought. And I will try to see if we can continue this engagement and if we will have good news and if this dialogue will improve and if we will have positive outcomes. That's what matters much to us. So if you do not mind, I would just conclude the debate right now, thanking you all for your wonderful contributions. Allow me to say that, Mrs. Kaiser, you were really fantastic in a couple of hours to be ready for the challenge. But Ms. Farhana, Ambassador Turing, Ms. Rahman, you were all fantastic, and thank you very much for your participation. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye to all. Thank you very